know how to give you sharing permission, so can you just request it again
Okay.
and then it pops up for me and then it is like Anupam wants this and I just immediately can allow. Okay.
Okay. Fantastic. All right, let me pull up Jairada Madhava. Fantastic. Get my trusty Mridanga. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Hari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om
Om
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Alayam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Dharam Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim
Tato
Vyasam.
Jayamudhiraye.
Tato Jaya Mudiraye.
Okay, welcome everybody to another wonderful installment of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter. The eighth verse is a very famous verse. This whole chapter is practically famous. This might be the most quoted chapter in all of ISKCON classes. So this is a great one. The one before this was a true heavy hitter, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, where Shukadev Goswami is talking about, um, sorry, it's Sutta Goswami. Sutta Goswami is talking about how just by devotional service one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So we don't need to do anything else other than devotional service, hearing and chanting about Krishna and acting in a way that we're trying to please him. And now it's getting a little bit more into the nitty-gritty because Bhakti Yoga is very practical. It's designed for the people of Kali Yuga. In previous ages, people would, if they wanted to attain enlightenment, would just go to the forest, go to a cave, go to the mountains, and just meditate all day. But in Kali Yuga, we can't do that because of iPhones and Instagram and social media and stuff. We just can't, somehow we can't break out of that attachment, at least not very easily. And so Sutta Goswami, who is speaking, um, he's giving us the prescribed method for us, for the Kali Yugites, so that we could come back to Godhead, so that we could attain complete enlightenment, spiritual realization. He's breaking it down into very granular ways, so that even people who are working, people who are in school, and so forth, can attain the same exact enlightenment. In fact, an even higher enlightenment, an even higher level of spiritual realization than even those from Satya Yuga for the previous age who would go to the cave or go to the mountain and meditate. So here we go. Here's how it's done, according to Sutta Goswami. Dharma svanushtita pumsam vishwaksena katasu yat natpada yadyadi ratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Dharma, occupation, svanushtita, executed in terms of one's own position. Very cool. Very personalized, this process. It's not a one size fits all. So one's working according to their nature. Pumsam of humankind, Vishwaksena, the personality of Godhead, plenary portion. Katasu, in the message of Ya, what is na, not, Utpadayat, does produce, Yadi, if, Ratim, attraction, Shrama, useless labor, Eva, only, he, certainly, Kevalam, entirely. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. There's two little things that are being indicated just by the verse. One is that we need to perform some kind of occupational duty. It's not that we can just go to a cave necessarily and forget everything. We have to do some work according to our nature. The soul is active by nature. And in Kali Yuga, there's so much distraction and disturbance, and the modes of nature, these energies of passion and ignorance are so prevalent that it makes it virtually impossible to just renounce the world. So we have to do some kind of work. So that's being made clear here. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position, we have to do something. But we can do those things in such a way that we attain enlightenment, that we advance spiritually. And in fact, if they do not lead to that enlightenment, if they do not provoke this kind of spiritual attraction, a kind of spiritual bliss, a kind of taste, an attachment to the message of the personality of Godhead, to Krishna himself, then ultimately everything that we're doing is all useless labor, right? That's what we generally see in the material world. People are doing things for money, for position, for power, for prominence. But the real reason anybody should be doing anything is to attain complete happiness, complete satisfaction, complete joy, complete bliss. And where people are in illusion thinking that those things will come from money or they'll come from fame or position, in reality, those things just produce more and more anxiety. People's bodily images get messed up. There's this whole phenomenon, I don't know if you guys have noticed, especially with women nowadays, where even a woman might be, attractive by material basic standards, still they are in so much anxiety because of the fame that they get or the recognition they're receiving, and they're realizing the nature of the world, their body is getting older, that they do these crazy things to their faces and get these lip fillers and shave down their chins or cheekbones or whatever, and they wind up looking very unnatural and oftentimes maybe even worse than they were before. And now it's becoming a thing with men as well. I watched this documentary recently on something called looks maxing, which I don't know if everybody here has heard of, but apparently it's a big thing where guys now too will get plastic surgery and perform all these crazy uh like hurtful means of trying to adjust their face in such a way that they could be more attractive. So the root cause of all suffering actually is the illusory conception that anything physical will make us happy, will make us satisfied. You could ask any of those people who have gotten these injections or surgeries, and most of the time, probably pretty much every time, unless they're being dishonest, they'll tell you that they're no happier than they were previously. That regardless of what they tried to do to adjust their physical situation, they actually only wound up with more anxiety and stress and despondency. So that's the message that this verse is ultimately discussing, is that no matter what we do in the material world, no matter what we think will make us happy, unless what we're doing is actually breeding a sense of attachment for God, for Krishna, then ultimately it leads to more and more dissatisfaction, more anxiety, more despondency. So that's something that's obvious. That's something we could see in the material world playing out before us, and we could experience it for ourselves. That's why Krishna consciousness is considered a scientific process, because it's not that we have to have some blind faith to uh, to get with it. We can actually see these things playing out before us. We can see how no matter how much material opulence or material things or physical attraction or something we may accrue, ultimately it doesn't lead to any greater sense of satisfaction. It actually leads to more anxiety. Whereas if we go within, if we're active within, we're working on ourselves internally, we rejoice within, we are experiencing the love that's inherent within the soul instead of just tending to the body. We're actually feeding the bird instead of just cleaning the bird cage. Then we feel some sense of satisfaction. We feel that joy, that bliss, that love that we were always searching for, just in the wrong places. So let's get into Prabhupada's purport. And let's see if there's any reflections, comments. We'll keep going. So, Prabhupada says there are different occupational activities in terms of a man's different conceptions of life. To the gross materialist who cannot see anything beyond the gross material body, there is nothing beyond the senses. Therefore, his occupational activities are limited to concentrated and extended selfishness. Such an interesting, granular way to break it down. I'm into this word granular right now. I don't know if you've noticed, but I heard Vaisheshika Prabhu say it in a class the other day, and it spoke to me somehow. So ultimately, it's just concentrated and extended selfishness. It's crazy to think about. We're all after love. That's the general consensus in the material world, that love is great. Love is the highest thing. All you need is love. What the world needs now is love. But ultimately, the way in which we're trying to cultivate that love, experience that love, is often in forms of just extended or concentrated selfishness. We're focused on our bodies, on the way somebody else's body will make us feel, on giving in such a way that we feel good, right? That's another social media craze, this idea of taking videos of oneself giving to homeless people or some. It's just extended selfishness. We're putting on a show of selflessness, but it's only for the sake of making ourselves feel good or look good or whatever it might be. So Prabhupada's saying that all of that stuff, even though it may appear sometimes as uh, as good works, as spiritual, whatever it might be, unless you get to the point where you're in a state of total selflessness and just trying to please divinity, trying to please Krishna, then it's no better than the gross selfishness of, say, the billionaires of the world that everyone likes to shun, or or people who commit crimes. It's just extended selfishness. It's not real love. So, concentrated selfishness centers around the personal body. This is generally seen amongst the lower animals. Extended selfishness is manifested in human society and centers around the family, society, nation, and world with a view to gross bodily comfort. Above these gross materialists are the mental speculators who hover aloft in the mental spheres, and their occupational duties involve making poetry and philosophy or propagating some ism with the aim of selfishness limited to the body and the mind. But above the body and the mind is the dormant spirit soul, whose absence from the body makes the whole range of bodily and mental selfishness completely null and void. But less intelligent people have no information of the needs of the spirit soul. So it's a great point, and it's a point that most people don't really get to. Prabhupada's saying that above the body and the mind, above the needs of the body, above the so-called needs of the mind, there's a spirit soul. There's who we actually are, who's transcendental to everything that we're seeing and perceiving in the material world, and whose real home is elsewhere, whose real satisfaction is elsewhere, whose real bliss and love is elsewhere. We can't juice it from this material world. We need to go within for that. That's where real happiness lies. But again, most people are focused on the externals. They're focused on the puppet, despite the fact that as soon as the soul leaves the body is considered useless. It's considered disgusting. People want to get it out as soon as possible. For example, you could think of the most beautiful person in the world, wherever that might be, say the most beautiful woman in the world, and so many men would line up just to have one date with them, let's say. But as soon as the soul leaves the body, you could ask those men, they don't want anything to do with it anymore. It's the same exact body as it was before, but it's a completely different situation now. Why? Because the soul has left the body. So, despite this fact, despite the fact that it's obvious that the soul is the most valuable thing in all of the universe, still people are completely focused on the body. They forget the needs of the spirit soul, and as a result, they're perpetually dissatisfied and depressed and anxious. So that's why, again, the verse is saying that anything that one does that doesn't cater to this need of the spirit souls is ultimately shrama, useless. There's no real value to it. Are there any reflections or comments thus far? You could churn the nectar a little bit here.
I mean, I just was kind of giggling to myself about the idea of, well, that there are no suitors for a corpse. I think that's a very uh, striking kind of image and helps prove your point
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You could think of even like the dear son or daughter of a family, and if the soul leaves the body, despite the fact that they have so much love for that person, that soul, they want to get the body out of the house or out of wherever it is immediately, burn it to ashes or bury it, because there's an inherent understanding that the soul is the person and the body is just a puppet. But people don't. People don't act in accordance with that understanding, unfortunately.
Actually, you could take it even one step further in a future class or something, and you could say that you know, people, the word like swooning, right? Like when someone sees, a living person that they're so attracted to, they actually almost faint from how strong their attraction is. And when they see it, like the same corpse, they faint in terror. It's actually not only are they uninterested, they're actually like, you know,
Yeah, repulsed.
yeah, like
Yeah.
they scream maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point.
Anyway.
It's a great point. No, it is. It's true. It's true. So these things are obvious, but the nature of Kali Yuga is such that people are so covered over that they forget about it. It is the age of distraction. In previous ages, people were dying left and right. Family members, friends, younger siblings, older siblings. Death was a much more prevalent thing. And while, you know, modern advancements in technology have prevented that from happening as much. And in one sense, that could be considered a good thing. On the other side, it removes us from reality in a sense, because for one who is born, they are sure to die. And so that's why it's so important while we are alive to cultivate spiritual realization and attachment to the divine, so that when that moment comes for us, then we're prepared. We're prepared for it. But because of all the distractions of the age, we no longer give it so much weight. But it'll come back to bite at the end, unfortunately. You could there's a fire going on in the material world, and you could ignore that fire for as long as you want, but eventually you're going to feel it. It'll become undeniable, and you'll be negatively impacted by it unless you prepare accordingly. Okay, continuing on. Because foolish people have no information of the soul and how it is beyond the purview of the body and mind, they are not satisfied in their performance of their occupational duties. The question of the satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. He is the potent, active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and mind. The body and the mind are but superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited. This is such a good purport. Check this out. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. So there's a sense that we're locked up in the material world, right? We want so much more than what we're able to actually grasp in the material world. There's so many different ways for the body to feel pain in the material world, and so few ways for it to feel pleasure. But we are pleasure seeking. We have this inherent longing, this inherent magnetism towards things that bring us happiness, things that bring us joy. But in reality, so much of what we're experiencing here only brings us more and more distress. In fact, even the greatest happinesses that we see, they often come with so much anxiety. Someone gets a lot of money, they immediately start thinking in anxiety about how someone might try to come and take it. Somebody might sue them, or somebody might, make some scheme to take their money from them, or the government might take their money from them. Somebody gets a beautiful, a suitor, a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and every time that they go out, they see other people looking at them. And every time that they're away from them, they're worried that somebody else is messaging them or whatever it might. There's just constant anxiety. Even the greatest happiness in the material world, it comes with so much anxiety. So this is unnatural for the soul. The soul wants complete freedom. It wants complete freedom to enjoy, to have exchanges that are absolute, that are nothing but happiness, that are nothing but bliss, that don't come with this sour ending, this kind of awful aftertaste. So, because that's not available in the material world, there's this inherent sense of hopelessness almost. That no matter what happens, even if I have the greatest life and I get everything I wanted to get, then at the end everything will be ripped away by cruel death. You could develop the most incredible empire, business empire, or empire, spanning different countries. We've seen that, of course, over history. But at the end, everything is ripped away. That's why apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but I hear it recounted often, Apparently, Alexander the Great, when he died by the bite of a mosquito, not the best way to go if you're the conqueror of, pretty much all of Europe and beyond. He had, at his funeral procession, he had his hands sticking out of his coffin so that everybody could see that ultimately, no matter how much you gain in this lifetime, at death, everything is ripped away. You're left with absolutely nothing. So this is an uncomfortable position for the soul because the soul's nature is eternity and bliss. It needs to be experiencing complete freedom to enjoy and love and and express itself and exchange in such a way that it is completely satisfied and is experiencing higher and higher levels of satisfaction and bliss. But in the material world, that's not provided. So, although this may seem like a lot of conjecturing or kind of hypothesizing, this is something that we experience. We experience that when instead of trying to gratify our senses in a gross way, instead of acting in a way that is either extended or concentrated selfishness, if instead of that we sacrifice for Krishna, we we choose not to, be first in line for prasadam, but instead we do the serving out of the prasadam. Or if instead of sitting around on a Sunday and just kind of vegging out on the couch, we go out and we do kirtan or we distribute books, we share Krishna consciousness with others, we see that against all previous notions, against all odds, actually we become happier in that state than in the state of just trying to gratify our senses, in the state of just going with the flow of the material world, because we're actually accessing something eternal, we're accessing something divine, and we're acting in such a way that is satisfying to the soul by sacrificing our immediate pleasures for the greater pleasure of Krishna and for the happiness of all those around us. So it's not that it's some kind of, um, new idea or some kind of thing that we just have to have blind faith in to believe. It's something that we could experience in a very real way every single day by choosing to do what's favorable for our devotional service, choosing to feed the soul instead of feeding the body and ego. We could feel the happiness, we could feel the difference in satisfaction immediately. It's a very real thing. So that complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. There is a dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of perverted affection for gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord. And any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said herein to be simply a waste of time. This is because other occupational duties, whatever ism they may belong to, cannot give liberation to the soul. Even the activities of the Salvationists are considered to be useless because of their failure to pick up the fountainhead of all liberties. The gross materialist can practically see that his material gain is limited only to time and space, either in this world or in the other. Even if he goes up to the Svargaloka, he will find no permanent abode for his hankering soul. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. So, on a practical level, what this verse is saying is that we should choose occupational duty. We should choose work that is not um, what's the word? It's not going to hurt our spiritual progress. For example, there's a very nice devotee named Hari Parshad Prabhu who is in tech, and he was offered a much higher paying position in his company. But he knew that if he took it, then he would have much less time to devote to hearing and chanting, to his meditation and to his to his absorption in spiritual texts like Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, etc. And so rather than taking the huge pay raise, he chose to stay with his current job because it provided enough for him so that he could get by, so that he could provide for his family. And it afforded him enough time and minimal stress so that he could go deep into his spiritual practice. So the main thrust of this verse, if you ask me, is that rather than trying to fit in our spiritual life and our spiritual practice around everything else we're doing, we should make our spiritual practice the focal point of our greater life. And every decision that we make, whether it's work or a spouse or what to do even on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis, should be centered around whatever is best for my service and for my association. If we can make those two things um, the focal point of all of our decisions, then we'll find that everything works out for us. Materially, we'll find that we have enough money. We'll find that we're in a comfortable situation. We'll find that we have good friends around us, people we can rely on. And spiritually, we'll see that we can make steady advancement, and that regardless of if we have a bad day or a bad week or whatever it might be, we'll see how we're ultimately on the up and up. Why? Because Krishna helps those who helps themselves. Later on in this chapter, we'll hear the verse, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vedantaksto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam, which means that Krishna is the super soul in the heart of every single living entity. And he is the benefactor, which means he personally cleanses the heart from material desires for one who is thoroughly honest and who has thus developed an urge to hear his messages. So if we're honest with ourselves, if we're thinking in our heart, in our mind, what can I do that'll help me deepen my spiritual practice, that'll give me better and better association, and that'll be good, that will help bolster my service, then Krishna within the heart will cleanse anything that's preventing us from fully experiencing him and will inspire us in such a way that in both material sphere and spiritual sphere, we are completely successful. So easier said than done, but if we're ever in doubt, we can always take shelter of the Bhagavatam, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita will find a everlasting wellspring of information and inspiration from those texts that'll help us in our daily decision making. And also in Guru, it's incredibly important to accept a bona fide spiritual master, spiritual guide who can help us, who knows our heart, and can help us make decisions, especially big decisions, so that we can make steady progress in our spiritual life and resultantly in our material life and in sadhu. So having confidants, people whom we trust, who we feel are more advanced than ourselves, whom we can go to for help and advice whenever we need a little guidance. So the verse again is the occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. So in other words, everything that we might do in the material world, every position we might hold, every bank balance that we may accrue, they're all ultimately a bunch of zeros. What makes them actually valuable is when we put the one Supreme Personality of Godhead first. If we could do that, then everything we do will actually have real value. We'll be using our wealth, we'll be using our skills, we'll be using all of our proclivities in such a way to please Him. And as a result, we'll both be completely satisfied spiritually, we'll make spiritual advancement, and we'll find total success in whatever way Krishna intends in the long run. So stop it there. 7 minutes. If there are any further comments or reflections, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Hare Krishna. Some people say that everything has a reason. There's a reason for everything we do. But this verse, it's a little bit refuting that. But can you explain this?
So everything has a reason in the sense that like everything we do has a reason.
Yeah.
So like everybody does something for a reason. You mean?
Um, like everything we do has some purpose or meaning behind it. And there's like a bigger controlling power. It's
Mm.
all part of a bigger plan.
Well, everything we do is definitely for a reason. For some of us, it is, for either, like Prabhupada's saying here, extended or concentrated selfishness. And ideally, we do it for the sake of pleasing God, for the sake of developing love in our heart for God. But I think also what you're saying is that everything that happens to us happens for a reason as well, and that's definitely true as well, in the sense that the material world is a sort of cosmic sensitivity training, and that everything that happens to us is ultimately meant to guide us towards the goal of Krishna. It's similar to like bumpers on a bowling lane track. We kind of like go too far this way, go too far that way, we get a little bump. We get a bump on this side, bump on that side, and ultimately we reach the pins. And so it's a similar thing for sure, in that we're constantly being guided. So yeah, we may be doing something that may be considered useless labor, but we'll get some guidance from Krishna. There will be some a sort of reaction to that that'll hopefully help guide us towards something more useful in terms of our work. But it is a fact that if we want in the material world, we can just go on trying to satisfy our senses, doing things in a selfish way. And we could act like that perpetually, performing what's essentially considered useless labor because it's not guiding us. Some people, no matter how many times you tell them not to do something, they'll keep on doing it. And so, that's up to them. And they might be considered doing something that is ultimately, useless because they're just acting in accordance with their own whims and acting out of ignorance instead of taking good instruction and good guidance from those around them. So hopefully, eventually, those useless activities will breed so many different reactions that they actually come to a state of, higher consciousness, and they decide to start acting a bit more selflessly. But it's a fact that if they so desire, they can continue on in ignorance perpetually. Um, so yeah, they might do something that might be considered useless, but Krishna doesn't do anything that's useless in that sense. So he'll help them uh, hopefully parlay that useless activity into something a bit more useful by giving them reactions to those activities that inspire them towards um, more useful actions,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, like you were saying that all the activities are zeros. But, like Krishna is if Krishna comes in and somehow, leaves you like all our activities, you're saying they're like if we can get to the pins and add that one, and they all become meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a great time too. People think it's austere or like they'd prefer to just sit around and watch Netflix. It's so much more fun and enjoyable and satisfying to add Krishna instead to that free time or to that activity or whatever it might be. It's simply joyful. So why not?
Something I noticed in the purport at the very end is that kind of description basically that even Swargaloka will not, satisfy the uh hankering. Yeah, it says hankering. for, material pleasure or whatever. I thought that was really evocative, really powerful for me. And it reminds me of this concept that um, I was talking about with a friend of mine recently uh, who unlike Hari Prasad Prabhu, did take a much higher paying job. And he said, I really hope that I don't allow lifestyle creep into my life, which is this concept of, as soon as you get more resources available to you, then you immediately want to use them, and then you can just never go back. Once you get accustomed to a certain standard of living, a certain standard of consumption, you can never go down.
Mm,
Um, and I thought, yeah, you actually see how that plays out with like very, very wealthy people. Their hankering just continues to, first, they start flying first class, then it's not enough, then they, you know, charter a jet, and then that's not enough, then they get their own plane, and the way that they accumulate more resources, by the way, is by, trying to take away from others, right? Because material life is a zero-sum game, spiritual life isn't. And I mean, I don't want to make this political per se, but it's really amazing how like materialistic people and their greed, they're like yeah, their greed, which can never be satisfied, um, is just so. I mean, it's just so unfortunate because, like you said, if they could just simply accept God, they would be so much more satisfied. And they would have fun too, but they would be satisfied. And they
yeah,
wouldn't feel like they need to exploit others to enjoy themselves.
yeah. Yeah, it's a fire that never stops burning, and that's why it's described the material world, samsara dhava nalaliya loka, that everybody is being burned up in this fire. And the only way to extinguish it is to take to the beautiful, cooling rivers of nectar that are coming from the mouth of those like Sutta Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. That's what puts out the fire. Otherwise, it's impossible. And it's the nature of the material world that nothing is ever going to be satisfying because we're categorically different from the material world. But yeah, we invite everyone to just try it out. Try out the bliss, the love, the sweetness that comes from hearing the message of Krishna. Because if you just taste it once, then your attraction is sealed and you can never quite go back to the material world, to the fire. There's always a sense that there's something much nicer out there. So that's why it's so powerful. The act of book distribution and of Sankirtan. You're giving everybody a little taste of what's available. And yeah, so thank you guys for doing what you're doing there at Krishna House. I'm sure it'll be even more successful than it already is. And yeah, let me know if there's any way I can help. We appreciate you guys holding it down on the West Coast.
Yeah, our desire to serve the fallen conditioned souls cannot be satisfied even by Swarga Loka.
Yes.
That can be a hankering that can continue to be there and unsatisfied.
Yeah, nice. Nice. That's the way to do it. Yeah, you'll see people will be ecstatic. It's no better feeling in the world than to watch someone go from the throes of material nature, getting kicked all the time by Maya, to experiencing the satisfaction and bliss of chanting Hare Krishna and reading the Bhagavatam. So,
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for including me.